This is what the Russian economy now sounds like. Not tank engines roaring, not propaganda shows receiving applause, but the frightening quiet of assembly lines grinding to a halt. Several weeks back, we informed you the trucks had come to a stop. We cautioned you that 7,000 transportation firms had gone bankrupt and that the nation's arteries, the highways, were clogged. Hundreds of thousands of times you viewed that video. The warning signs were clear to you, but the sickness has now spread from the arteries into the heart. The breakdown is no longer confined to the roads. It has infiltrated the factories, the retail centers, and even the New Year's dinner tables. Large industrial facilities are transitioning to 4-day work schedules. For the first time since the war started, restaurants are shutting their doors. And in a disgrace that would have the Tsars rolling in their graves, Russia, the nation of endless pastures, has started bringing in cheese from China. A return to Soviet Union glory was what Vladimir Putin promised. My congratulations, Mr. President. Your mission is accomplished. The bare shelves, the quiet factories, and the Spartan New Year festivities of 1991 have returned. Today on Mr. Warlog, we're not merely examining logistics. We're observing the deindustrialization of a superpower happening in real time. Before we reveal why New Year's Eve is being cancelled by Russian families and why a 50% market collapse in 2026 is predicted by retailers, hit that subscribe button. The missiles are what the mainstream media displays. The empty refrigerator that will truly end this war is what we show you. Let's return to where the infection originated. An unprecedented collapse was being faced by Russian road transport, we told you. The freight market is experiencing its most severe crisis in 17 years, as Trans.info and Mesa verified. Fuel costs are too high. For Western trucks, parts are nowhere to be found. Drivers are either dead or in the trenches. But when raw materials stop being brought to the factories by trucks, what occurs? The factories halt as well. It's a chain reaction, brutally simple. A bombshell report has been released by DACA. Russian production is undergoing drastic reduction. Quietly, factories nationwide are moving to 4-day work weeks. The reason? They lack the parts needed for assembly, they lack the trucks needed to transport finished products, and they lack the workers needed to run the machines. This 4-day schedule is deceptive. It's a Soviet-style fabrication designed to conceal unemployment. Rather than terminating workers and triggering mass protests, they're reducing hours and wages. It's a gradual demise. Imagine being a factory worker in the Urals. Inflation had already consumed your salary. Now a 20% pay cut comes because the factory closes on Fridays. On paper, you still have employment, but in reality, feeding your family is no longer possible. This is the industrial cardiac arrest we forewarned about. The cargo, the blood, ceased flowing, and now the organs, the factories are perishing. But if the factory stopping is tragic, what's occurring with food is national disgrace. The butter crisis was discussed in our previous report. We informed you how butter was being locked in security boxes by supermarkets because theft was occurring. We informed you how dairy producers absurdly attributed the shortage to Russians consuming excessive ice cream. The situation hasn't gotten better. It has transformed. Russia is the world's largest nation. Endless agricultural land is available. Yet, a fact that sounds like comedy but is tragedy is reported by Turkris.com. Cheese sales to Russia have been initiated by China. Let that register. Russia, a nation with a millennium of dairy farming tradition, is now reliant on Beijing for cheese. Why? The Russian dairy supply chain has been destroyed. The trucks needed to transport milk from farm to factory are prohibitively expensive. Packaging materials that were previously imported from Europe have disappeared. The machinery in cheese factories is German or Italian, and without spare parts, it's failing. So, to its new master, China, the Kremlin turns. This transcends cheese. This concerns sovereignty. A multipolar world and Russian independence are Putin's talking points. But what independence exists when even putting a cheese slice on your bread requires China's permission? Poverty was signaled by the butter theft. Submission is signaled by the Chinese cheese. From the factory floor to the store floor, the rot has spread. For 2 decades, Putin's stability was symbolized by the gleaming shopping mall. Western clothes could be purchased, food courts could be visited, and fueling European was possible for the Russian middle class. That dream has officially died. Terrifying data from Sberbank is reported by Hebrews. Consumer spending on footwear and clothing plummeted 8% in November 2025 versus the previous year. Clothing purchases have been stopped by Russians. What they have is being worn until it disintegrates. This is survival mode. A chilling forecast was given by Leo Chevchenko, a prominent clothing manufacturer and marketplace seller. He stated 2025 was difficult, but 2026 will be more difficult. His prediction is that in 2026, 50% of marketplace sellers will exit the market. Half will be gone. Why? War funding requires rising taxes. The transport collapse has caused logistics costs to explode. Advertising costs too much. Offline stores are closing in waves. A massive visitor drop has been experienced by 80% of shopping centers. Walk through a St. Petersburg mall today. It resembles a ghost town. To save electricity, the lights are dimmed. Storefronts are sealed with boards. The few people present aren't carrying shopping bags. A warm place to stay is all they're seeking. The Russian consumer economy, the engine maintaining domestic peace, has exhausted its fuel. It's not just the shops, it's the plates. For the first time since the 2022 mobilization, Russia's restaurant sector has contracted, reports the Moscow Times. Even during the war's early days, eating out continued for Russians. Pretending everything was normal was possible this way. Now that illusion costs too much to sustain. Ingredient costs have surged. The potato inflation, the butter theft, remember those? Those costs must be passed to customers by restaurants, but customers have no money. Traffic to bars and restaurants has declined significantly. This marks the end of middle-class lifestyle in Russia. When a new shirt is unaffordable and a meal out is unaffordable and a 4-day week with reduced pay is your reality, you're no longer middle class. You're the new Soviet proletariat. And now the most sacred holiday in Russian culture approaches. New Year's Eve. Traditionally, excess characterizes this time. Food-laden tables, caviar, champagne, children's gifts. But a heartbreaking reality for 2025 is reported by Dhaka. With strict austerity measures, Russians are preparing to celebrate. Everything is being cut back by families. Cheap vodka instead of champagne, fake substitutes instead of caviar, maybe one small item or nothing at all instead of gift piles. The Olivier salad, the Russian New Year staple, has become luxury because egg, potato, and mayonnaise prices have skyrocketed. Food isn't being put on tables by the patriotic war on TV. Pride in captured Ukrainian villages is what the government tells them, but a captured village cannot be eaten. The country's mood isn't celebratory. It's exhausted. It's the exhaustion of people who understand next year will be worse. But another darker reason explains the factory halts. Even if trucks arrived, even if parts were delivered, no one remains to operate the machines. Russia faces demographic suicide. Record low unemployment is the current rate. State TV labels this success. We label it a graveyard statistic. Unemployment is low because the men have vanished. Over 500,000 men are dead or wounded in Ukraine. Another million, the most skilled and smartest, fled the country avoiding the draft. Who remains to drive trucks? Who remains to repair pipelines? Who remains to bake bread? Desperation is mentioned in the Doka report regarding factories. Pensioners, teenagers, and inexperienced people are being hired. Grandmothers attempting to operate heavy machinery are being witnessed. IT specialists being forced into forklift driving are being witnessed. This is a zombie economy. It appears alive because money moves, but the body is dead. Without skilled labor, accidents are surging. Industrial fires are becoming commonplace, not just from drones, but from exhaustion and incompetence. Empire rebuilding was Putin's goal, but he forgot that people are needed to build empires. Russia's future has been fed by him into the Donbass meat grinder. The collapse isn't just on frozen highways. It's terrifyingly real at 30,000 feet. While the trucking industry perishes, passenger lives are being gambled with by the aviation industry playing Russian roulette. Since sanctions commenced, All spare parts and software updates were cut off by Boeing and Airbus. For 3 years, fleet cannibalization has kept Russian airlines surviving. Parts are stripped from one plane to keep another airborne, but planes to strip are running out. Recent reports indicate minor mechanical failures are being told to be ignored by Russian pilots. Worn-out brakes, fly anyway. Glitching sensors, ignore them. Flying in Russia today is gambling. Why does this matter economically? Because 11 time zones are spanned by Russia. Driving everywhere isn't possible, especially with broken trucks now. Meetings cannot be reached by businessmen. Remote oil wells cannot be reached by engineers for repairs. The country is becoming disconnected. From Moscow, Vladivostok feels like another planet. The glue holding the Federation together, transportation, is dissolving. When goods cannot move by road and people cannot move by air, a country doesn't exist. A collection of isolated starving islands exists. And when these isolated islands freeze, what happens? Another enemy has been brought by winter 2025, infrastructure collapse. While billions are spent by Putin on hypersonic missiles to destroy Ukraine's heating grid, his own cities are freezing. From Moscow suburbs to Siberia, across Russia, communal heating pipes are bursting. These pipes were installed in the Soviet era. 20 years ago, replacement was needed, but repair money was stolen through corruption or diverted to war funding. Now the metal is fatigued. The pressure is excessive. Boom! Without heat in minus 20 degrees weather, entire neighborhoods are left. Images of ice-coating apartment wall interiors are being seen. Images of families sleeping in winter coats, huddled around dangerous electric heaters are being seen. This is the ultimate betrayal. The energy superpower that threatened Europe with freezing is now watching its own citizens becoming ice blocks. The government's response? The West is blamed. Sabotage is blamed. But negligence is the real saboteur. The plumbers and welders who could repair these pipes are in trenches holding rifles instead of wrenches. The infrastructure war is lost. And in this chaos, who wins? Not Ukraine. Not the West. The dragon in the East. The Chinese cheese was mentioned, but that's merely the iceberg's tip. Russia isn't being saved by China. Russia is being purchased by China at discount prices. With European markets closed, oil and gas must be sold by Russia to Beijing for pennies on the dollar. Chinese trucks that fail in the cold are replacing Russian trucks. Chinese cars that cost double are replacing Russian cars. Russian savings are being converted to yuan because the ruble is toxic. Russia is becoming a resource colony for Chinese industry. A gas station with nukes managed by Beijing. The sovereignty Putin fights for has vanished. He traded Western dependence for Eastern subservience. And unlike the West, Russian human rights or living standards don't concern China. Only cheap resources matter to them.